Okay. I am with two fabulous musicians. They are members of Camerata Pacifica, Santa Barbara-based and world-class chamber ensemble that flutist Adrian Spence founded I don't know, what is it, 21 years ago, something like 24, maybe? I can't remember. Who cares? But a long, long time ago. And it is one of the great chamber music ensembles, certainly on the West Coast. And I think, it won't be long before we got some international distribution. We're talking about a CD about to come out. But I'm speaking with, on my left, let's see if that works, looking rather, as Lera described, rather mysterious. We have Ani Aznavoorian, cellist, principal cellist with Camerata Pacifica. And on my right, the lady with all the books behind her. I love that. Books or CDs or something, I don't know. Behind her, help, Lera Auerbach, composer, pianist, brilliant pianist. I nearly died this morning when I saw some of your performances on YouTube. By the way, go up and catch all these guys on YouTube, everybody who's watching. Let's see, pianist, poet, playwright, composer, and part of this discussion is going to be about a world premiere coming up with Camerata Pacifica. And let me now thumb through. I tried so carefully to get all this organized, and I'm completely out of my mind. Let me run the dates by and so on, because Camerata Pacifica plays throughout Southern California, and I know a lot of people throughout Southern California watch this interview. So here are the dates coming up in the beginning of March. March 6th, Thursday, in Los Angeles at the incredible Zipper Hall, the beautiful acoustic of Zipper Hall. Friday, we're going to focus more on Friday. It's the same program, but on Friday, March 7th, in Santa Barbara at Hahn Hall, beautiful chamber music hall in Santa Barbara. Sunday, March 9th in Ventura, and Tuesday, March 11th in Pasadena. So, there are plenty of you out there in Southern California. Do not waste a minute. Go right to your local newspapers and classical radio sources and get these dates locked in, get the phone numbers locked in. In Santa Barbara, the phone number to call for tickets for the Friday, March 7th performance by Camerata Pacifica. The telephone number is 805-884-8410. And tickets, I think there's a 1 o'clock kind of a shorter program, a lunch, brunch kind of program at 1 o'clock on the 7th. That's $22. And then the evening concert is at 7:30, and it's $45 for a ticket. And Lera tried to get away. I saw that. Okay.
Oh my cat.
Here's the. Oh, look at that cat! Wow.
Okay, come on.
What is its name?
It's Biggie Mott, like in Master and Margarita of Bulgakov, talking about books. So he's just saying hello.
Okay, I'm so sorry I asked. And then we had an errant son on Annie's screen a minute ago. I think everything's under control now. Here's the deal. Both Lera and Annie, as I understand from our little chat earlier, met as roomies at Juilliard. Tell me, is it a lie or is it true?
It's true.
It happened.
And is it okay?
Yeah, we still talk to each other.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Because clearly, I mean, you two have played a lot together over the years, and especially, I mean, Camerata audiences have had an opportunity to hear several pieces of Lera's, at least two anyway. I thought we had heard the preludes for violin and piano, but apparently not. Hello, Adrian Spence, pay attention. But we have heard Lera herself play the 24 her 24 preludes, and then her 24 preludes for cello and piano with Ani. And here's my quick question. Everybody asks, what was this obsessive-compulsive thing with 24 preludes?
Well, it was obsessive-compulsive because I wrote 3 cycles of 24 preludes, one following the other, and every time I would finish one of the cycles, I would feel hungry for more preludes, and I felt that it was just a warm-up leading to the next cycle, so I just kept on going. And so I wrote 72 preludes all in 1 year, and I just fell in love with the form, and it just gives so much possibilities, like a very large canvas that you can create so many psychological, coloristic, explorative possibilities that it's really fascinating.
Yeah, and it is that whole study of tonality and emotions. You know, that from that whole book, I forget what it is, but it's where every single tonality is described with a certain emotional context in the 17th, 18th century. Yeah, something like that. And Ani, how is it to here's the loaded one coming. How is it to play? How does Lera's cello writing fall under your fingers?
It's hard.
Good, you're honest. Yes.
Actually, it's hard, but it feels really good under the hand. It is cellistic. She clearly knows about the instrument. There are things that are hard, such as the Beethoven Triple Concerto for cello, which just is really finger twisting throughout the whole piece. Lera's music isn't quite like that. It still requires tons of practice because it's challenging, but it does fall well under the hand.
Well, okay, well you're home free on that one. Okay, you got over that one. And let's now talk about this world premiere piece coming up. And what really gets me, and I can't wait to hear it, is that I guess, except for some of the orchestral works, that first symphony I spent some time listening to Lera, and a large chamber piece. I've forgotten the title just now. But for me, in terms of personal live music experience, and that's where Spence is coming from about getting a live audience in a hall. This is important to him, and it's going to be important to me too. I'm going to hear a large body of instruments. One of your pieces, Lera, a world premiere, dream music, for the first time with this large ensemble, and we have solo cello. I guess you still are good roommates. You're writing. Lera's still writing music for you. Solo cello, flute, oboe, clarinet, 2 violins, viola, cello, percussion, piano, and I could spend another few minutes, but we're talking about some of the best musicians, really, no kidding, you know that, in the world. This is going to be a very, very exciting performance, and it's also going to be something like, as we were talking earlier, maybe 30, 32 minutes. This is a huge piece. And Lera, I just need to ask you, is it a kind of a concerto, a chamber concerto for cello and chamber musicians, or is Ani just a part of the ensemble? Go ahead, I loaded you on that one.
No, it is very much a concerto-like writing, where you have one versus a group, many, and there is a relationship between the two forces, so to say. So the approach is as it would be for a full orchestral concerto. So even though it's only 9 instruments plus solo cello, in my mind it's still they represent the mass, they represent the orchestra.
Did you just say the mass? Did I hear that?
Yes.
Well, is there anything about the masses and the protagonist, something imagery-wise?
Yes, well, this is how, in a way, the whole tradition of concerto writing started, because you have this romantic idea of one soloist going against the crowd, so to say, and which, of course, has all kind of literally and traditional and kind of dramatic possibilities. There is something very theatrical about the whole aspect of concerto writing. The lonely voice against many, this romantic idea, and I do tend to explore it in this piece. Maybe it's different from the traditional concerto writing, as I don't have the concerto structure, so to say, and there is a less virtuoso type of display that usually occurs in the traditional concerto writing, but it's very, very intensely psychologically dramatic work where you have clearly one voice against many.
And Ani, how is it to play again? Well, it's almost a redundant question, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, how does this feel under your fingers, and how does it feel with the ensemble, with these players? How does this work feel to you as a first timer? And then I'm going to hit up about the subconscious, deep psychological thing that I just heard. Go.
Well, let me tell you the first thing I did when I received the score. A previous concerto that was written for Camerata Pacifica was written for our violist Richard O'Neill, and the concerto was by Huang Ro, and it was a magnificent piece. But Richard had 2 solo lines. One was for his viola, and the other was for voice. He had to sing while he was playing, and it was extensive. It wasn't just one section. It was throughout the whole piece, and it was difficult for voice, too. And so the first thing I did when I received Lera's score was to make sure there was just one cello line, and there was. So I was pleased about that.
What? Say once more.
What's missing in the piece?
Ah,
I forgot to write a solo voice for
um,
you.
I know I have to watch what I say around Lera because she'll take
yeah,
anything.
yeah, because she could throw that in the next several days. Oh well.
It's
Anyway,
true. There's still
well,
time.
We still have time. Yes.
and
But it's been great. The learning process has been a lot of fun. It's a through composed piece. It seems like to me, this is the first time I'm talking to Lera since I received the score and the cello part. But it seems like dream sequences to me is a lot of sections strung together, but yet it still has a flow. So I don't know if that's exactly what she intended, but that's my impression. And so there's that. It's challenging in the fact that I have to have that mental what's the word I'm looking for? Stamina to get to the end of the piece because there aren't breaks. It's not three different movements like a standard concerto. I have to see the end of this 32-minute piece at the very beginning. So it does take a lot of mental and physical stamina because there aren't too many breaks in it for the solo cello part. So those are my initial impressions. It's quite beautiful. There's one section which I think is the most beautiful melody I've ever played in my life. And then typical Lera, if it's so beautiful, she won't let it last long. She always leaves you wanting a little bit more. But that's one of the things that's so attractive about her music.
yes, I find it very, very approachable. I know that word is overused all the time, but very approachable. And I'm speaking actually on behalf of audiences who are hearing Lera's music for the first time. As you, Lera, said something about if people come to any of my performances and they go through a performance and they haven't picked up anything, they've just wasted their time and their money. I mean, you are absolutely certain that there is going to be a response, which is always the case in music anyway. But I know that you are, or I'm guessing from what I've also heard, that you are very focused on a narrative, and that's a loaded word, but now it's my turn to ask you, after all, it's called dream music. You've created also a visual image, the painting. Is it a painting or a watercolor something?
No, it's a painting.
And do you do that always? I think your husband mentioned that you do that with most pieces, something like that.
I don't do it always, but I've done it quite a lot in the last 5 years or so. I found that as I'm working on a piece, I tend to create a lot of, sometimes a lot, sometimes just a single visual images associated with the work. It can be paintings, it can be sculptures, it can be mixed media works. And I also found it that, presenters always ask for program notes. And what I feel is that program notes from the composer can be quite dangerous because in a way you set in word just one possible interpretation and you limit the way the audience may interpret for themselves. So I think words become quite dangerous substance when it comes to music, when it comes from the composer. It's totally fine for everybody else to leave the trace, so to say. But for composer, it's almost like limiting your own child in how it can be perceived and how it can be established in the world. But however, to create different visual images, I think it's beautiful invitation for the audience actually to explore their own imagination and. I find it more safe, so to say, to connect, and it helps me. It actually helps me to survive the deadlines, I would say. Because I think with the paintings, because they don't come with a deadline attached to them, I feel I'm free to express some other sides that relate to the same piece I'm working on musically. And it also helps me sometimes to understand certain things structurally that I may not necessarily come to clear concept just through music.
So this is a process.
So it is a process, and it's something rather recent in my life. As I mentioned, I started doing paintings and sculptures by storm, so to say, for the last 5 years, and it became a very important part of my creative life.
I am so glad you said that because my little process here, Bravo, California, is an attempt to get all of the arts interacting, the visual artists listening to the interviews with the classical musicians, et cetera, et cetera, and it's hard. It's hard. So I'm always fascinated by people who really are a part of their process is other media, if you will. And Ani, just let me ask about your own kind of process of preparation. Can you give me a little info about how you kind of approach a brand new work? Can you hear me?
Well, the very first thing I did was look at the score, see how heavily it's marked. If I'll have trouble cutting through. Just went through the score without the cello. The next thing I did was to write in fingerings. I just go through very methodically, line by line. That's the most. That takes the most time, is writing in fingerings and bowings. But if I do that right at the beginning, then I learn the piece much faster. So that's exactly what I did. And so once I've got that done, then I start chunking it. And I actually kind of start like I like starting from the back of the piece in chunks, maybe a page at a time, adding a page on in front of that last page, and then keep doing that. And that way, as I play a piece, I feel more and more confident because I know the end of the piece the best. That's just sort of my mental thing. But
boy, that's fascinating. That is really fascinating.
Process.
And then, is there a point? Excuse me. Go ahead, Lera.
Maybe we should try to play it backwards. Maybe.
Giving you more ideas here.
We haven't. I'm not in California yet, so we didn't have a full rehearsals as an ensemble yet. So there's still a lot of room for experimentation and ideas.
And there's also a lot of room for everybody to finally figure out. In other words, nobody really knows. Everybody's preparing their individual parts. This will be interesting, I think, for people. And none of you individual, Lera, of course, knows what she's going to be expecting. But you individual musicians may not have any real idea until you sit down for that first rehearsal. Close?
Exactly. And I'm not a pianist, unfortunately. I can't read a score like some pianists can, so I don't really have a full sense of what the orchestra part sounds like. Lera and I are going to have a Skype rehearsal this week.
Nice.
So I'd help out with that on the piano.
And again, as with Adrian Spence's programs, I mean, beautifully balanced, fascinating, amazing works. Addis, Catch, a large chamber piece. I'm really curious to hear it. I don't think I've ever heard it. And then Brahms Clarinet Quintet. Everybody loves the Brahms Clarinet Quintet. Britten, Temporal Variations. I don't think I've heard that either. And that's the big joy of hearing so much wonderful, fabulous repertory played, again, at the highest possible level, and that is the difference. And I really forgot to ask you a little something, Annie. It's so after it starts to fall together, is there I hate to say that aha moment, because I know you're an extremely expressive, fabulous. The bar line disintegrates. That's the whole point, right? In a way, is to get rid of that bar line.
Oh, I like that. The bar line disintegrates. I'm going to add that to my bio.
Okay. I hope we didn't offend Lera. But you know what I'm trying to say? Is there a moment, in general, is there some kind of moment where all of a sudden, in preparing new music or even music you've played 100 times, where suddenly there's something that just goes, that's it about a passage?
Yes, that kind of happened today. I've started playing through the piece more, and start to finish, no matter what happens, just keep going. And today I really felt the overall piece, and I'm sure when I have my rehearsal with Lera, she'll tell me I'm feeling it all wrong. but I've kind of had a mini aha moment today. It just felt complete, even though I don't have the orchestra part in my ear. But my part had a flow that I enjoyed today.
And how come, Lera, you decided you're going to back off the piano part? How dare you? And have Adam Neiman, one of the greatest pianists ever, play it instead?
Well, first of all, Adam is a fantastic pianist, and who also we were at Juilliard at the same time. And it's great to be in the audience and to observe a piece from the side. So, and also I feel that it's when others perform my music, it's the piece really taken off. And I love playing my music myself, but it's when others take it. It's when the piece really has its own wings.
Well, we're having some few little sounds. There must be a passing satellite or other, but so far we've been so good. I got to ask you one last, both of you. But Lera, for example, has described something about the process of about her music as being. We talked earlier, and I love the word fearless. And I, in all my wordiness, as I'm a so-called critic, I'm trying to find just the, how to describe the really the beauty. Your music, Lera, is always moving. I mean, there's just no way to get away from it. But it is also fearless, and that is part of the joy of it. And also that you have said, thank you for all of us, that music is really the heart of communication. It's the closest. It's the one that goes right here, right away to everybody, whether they want it or not. They may not even understand it. And that sounded awfully snotty of me, but you know what I'm trying to say. And so one last little thing, because people love to hear this. I know it's a little corny, and you've probably been asked a million times, and I remember it, I think. But what that it's a crazy profession. It's a very difficult profession. It's very hard to make a living, and so congratulations to you both. But what was that? When was that moment when it was sort of like, uh-oh, this is it. This is going to be my whole life. For what reasons? Let's start with Annie. Can I ask you that question? Can you remember anything?
A specific moment?
If you like, or not.
No, it was just, it's been in my blood for so long. I mean, starting when I was 3, and it was always the top thing, most important thing in my life. Always, and I always enjoyed it. It wasn't forced upon me. So it was, I guess, that the time when I really made the decision if it would be forever was when I was applying for colleges, and I had to decide whether to, apply to a conservatory or more emphasize academics. So that was the point where I really made the decision when I went to Juilliard.
Was your family musical?
My father, he's the most passionate person about music I know, but he doesn't really play anything. He's obsessed with the violin. He knows more about the violin than any violinist I know. He's got every recording, every book about it. And he is now a violin maker, which he wasn't always. He was a chemist early in life, but he changed professions maybe 20 years ago. And that's what he does, and he loves it.
I was looking for that root. I've heard from so many musicians that they were the mom and dad played in the New York Philharmonic, and it was just a natural thing. By the way, you play your father's cello, correct?
I do. I love it.
Hello, a plug for Dad. Lera, was there ever some kind of something that just said, bingo, this is it?
Well, I always knew it. I knew it when I was 3 years old. And I remember my first improvisations on the piano. I would go to the piano and I would create a story. I would either illustrate a story that maybe my mother read me a night before, or I would make my own story, but it would be a musical story. So I would illustrate it by playing sounds. So playing an instrument and storytelling was very much connected to me from the beginning. And also I was very fortunate because my mother, who was a musician, she taught me how to read music. At the same time, I learned how to read words, which was, again, when I was 4 years old, I already would notate my own improvisations. And I found it first of all, very natural, the process of notating down your musical ideas. It just actually is maybe a pain point with many composers. How do you go from having all these ideas and actually notating them down? For me, it was a very natural process from very beginning because it occurred in such an early age, and it became almost. I don't almost notice it, how I write it, and I always write by hand. I write everything by hand because it became such an organic part of. I wouldn't be able to recreate this process if I had to write directly to the computer. It just just something would be lost in the middle. So and it was fascinating for me to be able to actually write down something that just happened, and so that it can be done again another day and return to it. And right away I knew that was my life. So I didn't know specifically from the beginning. I also wanted to paint and I wanted to write. So I wanted to do it all, and I knew I would be doing it all one way or another since I was 3 years old. And it's almost I think later on in life it was a time when everyone was telling me you have to decide, you have to choose, you have to make up your mind. Are you going to be a concert pianist or are you going to be a composer? Even within music, it was already seen as being a problem. And in our world of skepticism, I was told that you cannot be taken seriously. If you're a pianist, you can't possibly be a serious composer, and vice versa. There's not enough time to approach all of it. And at the same time, I wanted to write poetry, and I did, and prose. Right away, my publishers were telling me, you cannot write both poetry and prose because your readers will not take you seriously. You can be only one or the other, but I wanted to do both. And of course, when I started to do painting, that was my reaction in a way to all this.
Oh, interesting.
So how do you decide between music and literature? You start to, paint. And of course, right away, the same thing happened. I had to do sculptures. And in a way, it was only rather recently that I returned to this notion, which I knew with this complete certainty when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, that my path is to do all of it, that I will never choose. And it's all somehow organically, for better or for worse, interconnected. And whenever I try to limit or cut one part, I start bleeding internally.
How easily we have forgotten all about Leonardo. Hello. Listen, it's time to quit. Wonderful talk. Ani, I hope we aren't going to make you late to your next gig here.
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Just a brief one. I'm going to remind everybody in Southern California, particularly, Camerata Pacifica, the best chamber music ensemble, at least on the West Coast. That's all I have to say about it. In terms of exciting, fabulous music making. Thursday, March 6th in Los Angeles at the Zipper Hall, downtown Los Angeles. Friday, the 7th of March, we get them twice, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a shorter program, and at 7:30 at Hahn Hall. And I've given you the phone number. I'm going to give it to you again for tickets. Area code 805 in Santa Barbara, 884-8410. And then also on March 9th in Ventura and March 11th in Pasadena. Wow, well, yeah, I guess you're going to know that new piece pretty well by then, yeah?
That's the great thing about Camerata, so many chances to get it right.
May I thank on my left Ani Aznavoorian, cellist, fabulous cellist, incredible cellist. Thanks so much for giving me some time. And on my right, the Machiavellian, the new Leonarda, Lera Auerbach. I'm looking forward to hearing the world premiere these 4 evenings of Dream Music, among other, a terrific program of fabulous chamber music. Thanks very much, guys. We pulled it off, I think.
Yay!
Thank you. Bye, all.
Bye.